But topping our news tonight is the death of a rising country music star.
Have you ever wondered what happened to some of your favorite musicians? From rock legends to pop icons, we're diving into the lives of 35 famous stars you will never see again. Stay tuned, because their stories are as unforgettable as their music. 35. Connie Converse.
Between two tall mountains.
Now, here's a lesser-known but incredibly talented musician, Connie Converse. She was a singer-songwriter active in the New York City area during the 1950s, known for her folk music style that resonated with many. Despite her talent, Connie struggled to make ends meet in the bustling music scene of New York. After years of pursuing her passion without much commercial success, Connie decided to move to Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1963. There, she took on various jobs to support herself, including working as a secretary and later as a writer and editor for the Journal of Conflict Resolution. Her time at the Journal came to an abrupt end in 1972 when the organization was auctioned off and moved out of state. Unfortunately, this marked a turning point for Connie. Losing her job plunged her into a deep depression, which only worsened when she received news from her doctor that she needed a hysterectomy. The combination of these hardships took a toll on her mental health. In 1974, Connie made a pivotal decision. She wrote letters to her family expressing her desire to head west and start anew. Shortly after, she disappeared without a trace. Her disappearance remains a haunting mystery to this day, leaving fans and music historians alike wondering about her ultimate fate. 34. Richie Edwards. Now let's dive into the intriguing yet tragic story of Richie Edwards, the guitarist for the Manic Street Preachers during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Richie wasn't just known for his musical talents. He was a troubled soul who openly grappled with depression and self-harm. In interviews, Richie bravely discussed his ongoing battles with mental health issues, shedding light on the darker aspects of fame and creative expression. One of the most chilling moments came when he carved "For Real" into his own arm with a razor blade, responding to critics who questioned the authenticity of his band's image and lyrics. This act, a disturbing form of protest, highlighted the intensity of his personal struggles. Then, on February 1st, 1995, a pivotal moment in music history occurred. Richie Edwards, scheduled to fly to the United States for the promotion of the Manic Street Preachers' new album, The Holy Bible, simply vanished. His disappearance sent shockwaves through the music world and beyond, leaving fans and loved ones bewildered and deeply concerned. 16 agonizing days later, a clue emerged. Richie's car was discovered near the Severn Bridge, a notorious spot known for suicides. This discovery fueled grim speculation that Richie may have tragically ended his own life by jumping from the bridge. 33. Licorice McKechnie. Now let's uncover the mysterious journey of Licorice McKechnie, the Scottish musician who left an indelible mark on the psychedelic folk scene as the frontwoman of the Incredible String Band during the late 1960s and early 1970s. After her time with the Incredible String Band, Licorice embarked on a new chapter in California, where she married fellow musician Brian Lambert. Despite her departure from the limelight, Licorice continued to contribute to the music world, notably appearing on Robin Williamson's 1977 album Journey's Edge, which showcased her enduring talent and musical spirit. However, details about Licorice's life post-1977 remain scarce and enigmatic. Her family's last confirmed sighting of her was in 1986, and the following year, she was reportedly seen wandering and hitchhiking in the Arizona desert. Tragically, since then, there have been no further sightings or updates regarding her whereabouts. Licorice McKechnie's disappearance in 1987 has left her loved ones and fans with lingering questions and a sense of unresolved mystery. 32. Jim Sullivan. Now let's delve into the intriguing story of Jim Sullivan, a singer-songwriter whose career flourished in the vibrant Los Angeles clubs during the 1960s. Jim's music seamlessly blended rock, folk, and country influences, creating a unique sound that resonated with audiences. In 1969, Jim Sullivan made his mark with the release of his debut album, UFO, which quickly gained a cult following. His music's timeless appeal was reaffirmed when the album was re-released in 2011 and again in 2019, ensuring that his legacy continued to captivate new listeners. However, Jim's promising career took a mysterious turn in March 1975. His Volkswagen Bug was discovered abandoned at a remote ranch, approximately 26 miles away from the hotel where he had been staying in Santa Rosa, New Mexico. This puzzling discovery sparked a flurry of theories and speculations surrounding his sudden disappearance. Among the various theories that emerged, one suggests that Jim may have encountered trouble with a family connected to the mafia, adding a layer of intrigue to his disappearance. Another theory speculates that he may have become lost in the vast desert landscape, echoing the mysterious fate of Licorice McKechnie. Interestingly, given the thematic backdrop of his album UFO, which explored extraterrestrial themes, some enthusiasts have entertained the idea of an alien abduction as a possible explanation for Jim Sullivan's disappearance. 31. Scott Smith. Winnipeg, Manitoba's Scott Smith was a bassist for the band Loverboy, the 80s rock group that produced hits like Working for the Weekend and Lovin' Every Minute of It. He even co-wrote one of the band's hit songs, Lucky One. In November 2000, the bassist and a group of friends were sailing from Vancouver, British Columbia to Mexico when tragedy struck. A massive 25-foot wave struck the boat and swept Smith overboard. The others traveling with him couldn't locate their colleague, so they immediately contacted the Coast Guard. Within 30 minutes, several boats and helicopters arrived on the scene. The vehicle searched a 133 square mile radius around where the accident had occurred, but came up empty. Smith's family would go on to hire a private search team, but sadly there was no sign of the talented bassist. He would later be pronounced missing, presumed dead, lost at sea. 30. Glenn Miller. Glenn Miller was a best-selling artist throughout the late 1930s and early 1940s with hits like In the Mood and Chattanooga Choo Choo. In December of 1944, Miller was headed to France to entertain troops during World War II when his plane and its occupants mysteriously disappeared over the English Channel. There are several theories associated with the disappearance that range from feasible to borderline absurd. One of the more likely scenarios centers around the pilot, John Morgan, who was not licensed to fly using just the plane's instruments. It was a particularly foggy day when the plane disappeared, so it's possible that Morgan lost his bearings, became disoriented, and the vehicle crashed as a result. Conversely, one of the more outlandish ideas surrounding Miller's disappearance is that he was actually a spy diplomat working for the US government on a secret mission. There was also the rumor that Miller actually made it to France and died of a heart attack in a Paris brothel. As a result, to protect the famous musician's reputation, the US government manufactured the plane's disappearance. Theories aside, roughly 86 years later, Miller's fate remains a mystery. 29. Joe English. Joe English didn't expect to be working with Paul McCartney. In 1975, he saw an ad looking for a drummer and visited a basement of an old building. He stayed with the band until 1977, when the American-born English decided to go back to the States. He joined a progressive rock band called Sea Level. Later, he became a born-again Christian, formed the Joe English Band, and started touring with other Christian rock groups in the 80s. In 1990, he joined World of Faith Fellowship, a controversial, insular, evangelical Christian community known for the practice of blasting. He does not tour anymore. He's not one to give interviews. He doesn't talk to Paul McCartney. 28. Paul Davis.
Basically, I like the creative end of it. I've always been shut up in the studio making records.
Paul Davis was an artist whose 1977 breakthrough single, I Go Crazy, was a #7 hit that set a record by remaining on the chart for a startling 40 weeks. That record has since been eclipsed many times over, and Davis went on to even bigger success in the 80s, scoring the hits 65 Love Affair and Cool Night early in the decade. The next few years saw Davis pivoting to country, scoring hits via duets with Marie Osmond and Tanya Tucker. But as his career was starting to cool off, Davis was shot during an attempted robbery, prompting him to step away from public life and concentrate on songwriting in his home studio. In the zeros, he was working on new stuff and mulling over a return to recording, but it was not to be. In April 2008, Davis suffered a heart attack and died in the hospital in his hometown of Meridian, Mississippi. It was the day after his 60th birthday. 27. Meg White. White Stripes drummer Meg White was always content to stay in the background and let her ex-husband Jack White speak for the band. Things started to get weird on the group's 2007 tour when they canceled a string of dates due to Meg's acute anxiety. Jack spent the next 2.5 years focusing on his side projects while the Stripes went silent. Their last public performance was in February 2009 when the duo reunited to play We're Going to Be Friends on the final episode of Late Night with Conan O'Brien. In February 2011, the group formally announced their split. 26. Marie Fredriksson. Roxette, a Swedish duo made up of Per Gessle and Marie Fredriksson, had a very bizarre rise to international fame. The bandmates met in the late 70s, ultimately forming Roxette in 1986 and subsequently reaching success in their home country with their single Never Ending Love. The Look, a single off of the band's second album, ultimately became a national hit in the US, peaking at #1 on Billboard's Hot 100 chart. Roxette went on to enjoy other hits in the US, such as 1988's Listen to Your Heart, and continued touring and making music through 2016. Sadly, after battling cancer for 17 years, Fredriksson died of a brain tumor in 2019 at the age of 61. 25. Sly Stone. Stone was a great musician, but he was also a man with a lot of drug issues. After 1982, he basically stopped making music. After being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993, he all but disappeared from the public. For many years, Sly Stone battled Syd Barrett for the title of rock's most notorious recluse. Sly battled drug problems through much of the 1970s. By the mid-80s, his career had ground to a halt, and he went off the radar. Stone shocked everyone by turning up at the band's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 1993, but he disappeared again right afterwards. In 2006, he popped up during a tribute to his music at the Grammys, but he wasn't looking or sounding his best. Last year, a report emerged that Stone was virtually homeless and living in a van, but his team issued an immediate denial. 24. John Deacon. What is it about bass players that makes them turn to a reclusive lifestyle? Deacon played bass for Queen, only one of the biggest bands of all time. Since the death of Freddie Mercury, though, he's all but disappeared from the world. When Brian May and Roger Taylor joined with Adam Lambert to tour, Taylor said that Deacon had completely retired from any kind of social contact. So don't expect that reunion tour. John Deacon wrote some of the band's most beloved songs, including Another One Bites the Dust, I Want to Break Free, and You're My Best Friend. He participated in the Freddie Mercury tribute show in 1992, and he joined his surviving bandmates and Elton John to perform The Show Must Go On in 1997. After that, he basically fell off the face of the earth. 23. Peter Green. Peter Green left Fleetwood Mac in 1970, but reunited with them a couple times in the early 70s, filling in for Jeremy Spencer when he abruptly left the band in 1971, and an uncredited appearance on the album Penguin. His mental illness and drug use affected him, and he faded into professional obscurity by the mid-70s. He hasn't reunited with Fleetwood Mac, but in 2009 he toured as Peter Green and Friends. He did not appear at the Mick Fleetwood and Friends tribute to Peter Green in 2020. He seems to be retired now. 22. Kate Bush. Bush has garnered a lot of fans, especially in England, since she first appeared on the scene in 1978. She also hasn't toured since 1979. In fact, until she did a run of shows at the Hammersmith Ballroom in London in 2014, she had barely performed in public at all. Even so, Stranger Things helped make her a superstar once again. 21. Richie Edwards. In 1998, Manic Street Preachers' This Is My Truth, Tell Me Yours was one of the most popular albums in the UK. After a string of hits barely cracking into the top 10, the Welsh band found their single, If You Tolerate This Then Your Children Will Be Next, at the top of the charts. Guitarist Richie Edwards never saw this achievement. 3 years prior, the star made headlines as the subject of one of the most infamous disappearances in rock and roll history. Edwards went missing on February 1st, 1995, and his body was never found. As the outlet recounts, the guitarist checked out of his hotel in London first thing in the morning and drove to Wales, only to vanish. Edwards was widely thought to have died by suicide at the age of 27, joining the unfortunately grim 27 Club, along with beloved musicians like Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and Amy Winehouse. 20. Charly McClain. Charly McClain was a big country star in the 80s after she released her first top 10 hit, That's What You Do to Me, in 1978. She then landed her first #1 single in 1981, Who's Cheatin' Who, which instantly shot her into stardom. She had a slew of other hits throughout the 80s like Sleeping with the Radio On and Radio Heart, and even dived into some acting. But her success began to subside in the late 80s. She stopped making music after her last album in 1989 and retired from showbiz in the early 90s to spend more time with her family. 19. Bobbie Gentry. She became a household name in 1967 under the smash hit Ode to Billy Joe. That same year, Bobbie Gentry won 3 Grammy Awards and sold 3 million copies of that song. She has now gone down in history as one of the first female country artists to compose and produce her own music. Gentry had huge success in the late 60s and continued to release music, but unfortunately was never again able to match that success in her career. In 1978, she released her last single, He Did Me Wrong, But He Did It Right, which failed to chart, so she decided to retire from show business. She settled down in Los Angeles and disappeared from the public eye. 18. Shelly West. When Shelly West began singing, she was already kind of famous for being the daughter of famed country singer Dottie West. Following in her mother's footsteps, Shelly rose to fame in the 80s and was well known for performing duets with David Frizzell. Their best-selling #1 hit together was You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, in addition to her own #1 single, Jose Cuervo. Her career was smooth sailing for the most part, but around the time of her mother's death in 1991, West retired from the music industry. She's continued to perform here and there, but she's rarely ever seen in the limelight. 17. Scott Walker. Scott Walker got his start as a teen idol in a boy band, the Walker Brothers. In the late 60s, he started his Baroque pop avant-garde solo career. When his career started to decline in the mid-70s, he reunited with the Walker Brothers, and there were very long gaps between his solo albums, only resurfacing once a decade with a new album. As a recluse, he struggled with his mental health and alcoholism. He liked to study fine art and painted in his free time. Occasionally, he gave interviews where he would say he wasn't reclusive, just low-key. He died in 2019 at the age of 76. 16. Eddie Money. Eddie Money first made a splash in the late 70s with the hits Baby Hold On and 2 Tickets to Paradise before courting major stardom with a pair of tunes in the early MTV era. Think I'm in Love, a number 16 hit, and Shakin', which, while only reaching number 63 on the chart, boasted a widely popular video featuring Apollonia Kotero, who would go on to co-star with Prince in the 1984 classic Purple Rain. Money would really cash in later in the decade, fielding the number 4 smash Take Me Home Tonight in 1986 and the number 9 hit Walk on Water in 1988. All told, he landed no fewer than 23 tunes in the Hot 100 during his career, and according to his website, he sold a whopping 28 million records. Money died in 2019 at the age of 70, and in a statement, AXS TV founder Mark Cuban eloquently paid tribute, writing, "He will be missed immensely by all of those who knew and loved him. But if we know Eddie, he's rocking right now in heaven, doing what he always loved." 15. Jimi Jamison. Chicago rockers Survivor were far from a one-hit wonder, but when your introduction to the national audience is a tune as indelible as Eye of the Tiger, you take the bad with the good. Not long after Eye of the Tiger went nuclear, the band shed lead singer Dave Bickler in favor of a new voice, Jimi Jamison, who had previously fronted the band Cobra and sang backing vocals for the likes of Joe Walsh and ZZ Top. Jamison sang lead on all of Survivor's successive hits, including High on You, Is This Love, The Search Is Over, and from the Rocky IV soundtrack, the number 2 hit Burning Heart, perhaps his best performance. The band's commercial fortunes literally ended the moment the 80s did. They landed no fewer than 18 singles in the Hot 100 during the decade, with the last being Across the Miles, which peaked at number 74 in February 1989. Survivor continued to perform together, and Jamison was in the studio and coming up with some new material when he died of a stroke in 2014. He was 63 years old. 14. Izzy Stradlin. Even at Guns N' Roses' height in the late 1980s, guitarist Izzy Stradlin was a bit of a mystery. Everyone knew he played a major role in writing their hits, but he shied away from the press and let Axl, Slash, and Duff do most of the talking. Stradlin quit the band in 1991 during the Use Your Illusion tour, launching a long solo career. In 2006, Stradlin shocked Guns N' Roses fans when he got on stage with the band at a New York gig, then did a bunch of shows with them in Europe. But the man likes to keep people guessing. Like Axl, he was a no-show when GNR made it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this spring. 13. Fats Domino. In 1949, long before Elvis and Chuck Berry hit the scene, Fats Domino released his debut single, The Fat Man. Many consider it the first rock song. Hits like Blueberry Hill and Ain't That a Shame followed in the 1950s, and he toured the oldies circuit regularly from the 1960s through the 1990s. But things slowed down dramatically after that, largely due to Domino's reluctance to leave his hometown of New Orleans. He played around town about once a year in the early 2000s, including a few Jazz Fest performances, but that was it. He's been laying low since then, aside from a 2007 show at Tipitina's in New Orleans. 12. Agnetha Fältskog. ABBA's 4 members have little incentive to do much of anything these days. Their catalog continues to pump tons of money into their bank accounts, and the musical Mamma Mia packs theaters every night all across the world. So it's no wonder why they've reportedly turned down offers of $1 billion for a reunion tour. Of the 4, Agnetha Fältskog keeps the lowest profile, reportedly rarely leaving Stockholm. She showed up at the premiere of the Mamma Mia movie in 2008, but only posed for photos on a balcony with the movie's cast, far away from her 3 former bandmates. And she was nowhere to be seen when ABBA got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2010. 11. Darcy Wretzky. Smashing Pumpkins bassist Darcy Wretzky left the group in 1999. According to recent interviews with Billy Corgan, she said she wanted to become an actress. Corgan also infamously called her a mean-spirited drug addict who refuses to get help. The acting career never happened. Instead, Wretzky moved to a horse farm in Michigan and totally disappeared. Pumpkins fans were stunned when she called into a Chicago radio station in 2009 for a bizarre interview in which she discussed Davy Jones, Marilyn Manson, and the Silver Sun Pickups. Many fans felt that she didn't sound too healthy, and their concerns were seemingly confirmed when she was arrested for drunk driving in 2011. 10. Pete Burns. Pete Burns, frontman of new wave group Dead or Alive, died in October 2016. The cause was massive cardiac arrest. The band formed in the late 70s, although it wasn't until their 1984 single, You Spin Me Round Like a Record, that they really gained worldwide recognition. The New York Times revealed that the track reached the 11th spot on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US, while in their native UK, it took its place on the throne at number 1. 9. James Ingram.
Just once, can we figure out what we keep doing?
On January 29, 2019, actor Debbie Allen announced the passing of her longtime friend and R&B legend, James Ingram. While she didn't mention any cause of death, gossip rag TMZ revealed that same day that Ingram's death at age 66 was due to brain cancer. It marked the end of an industry icon. Ingram has won 2 Grammys in his career and was nominated 14 times, even stepping out of his comfort zone and collaborating with his musical peers of different genres, such as country queen Dolly Parton and pop star Linda Ronstadt. 8. Irene Cara. In 1980, Irene Cara starred in the feature film Fame, leading that Oscar-winning drama's ensemble cast and singing its theme song. She followed that success in 1982 with her debut solo album, Anyone Can See, which had previously yielded the 1980 top 20 single in Out Here on My Own, but the best was yet to come. In 1982, she was tapped to co-write and perform the title track to the movie Flashdance, which scored yet another Oscar and shot to number 1 on the pop chart. Unfortunately, her career was hindered by allegedly shady business practices on the part of her label. In 1985, she filed a lawsuit against Network Records, claiming that she had been bilked out of royalties from the Flashdance soundtrack and her first 2 albums. She received a $1.5 million settlement in 1991, but later complained to People that she had been virtually blacklisted as a result of the suit. In recent years, Cara attempted a 2011 comeback with her group Hot Caramel, but the project went nowhere. Cara died in 2022 from heart disease. 7. Kevin DuBrow. Lead singer Kevin DuBrow was part of glam metal band Quiet Riot since its inception in the 70s. It wasn't until 1983's Metal Health album that they really gained worldwide recognition. Quiet Riot would continue to make music throughout the decades to come, so it came as a big shock, of course, when the world found out that DuBrow suddenly died in November 2007. According to the Los Angeles Times, the singer's death was ruled an accidental cocaine overdose. He was 52. As it turned out, DuBrow had recently broken up with his girlfriend of over 7 years, Lark Williams, who was equally shocked by the rocker's death. 6. June and Bonnie Pointer. The Pointer Sisters originally formed in the late 60s by sisters June and Bonnie Pointer. Their other two siblings, Anita and Ruth, joined the group in 1972 and released their debut album the following year. By the time the 80s rolled around, the quartet released 1983's Breakout, subsequently going triple platinum. Sadly, in the following decade, the sisters all decided to experiment with solo efforts, none of which reached the same level of fame. In April 2006, the youngest Pointer sibling, June, died of cancer at the age of 52. 14 years later, in June 2020, the other founding member, Bonnie, went into cardiac arrest and sadly died. 5. Greg Ham. Men at Work released some of the most memorable songs of the 1980s. The Aussie band released their debut album Business as Usual in November 1981, and by the following year achieved international fame. Men at Work are perhaps remembered best for their song Down Under, which many consider the unofficial anthem for Australia. Much of the band's success would not have happened without Greg Ham, who played the saxophone and flute in the group and was responsible for that riff in Down Under. Unfortunately, Ham and the rest of the band ran into a rough snag in 2010, years after they disbanded, when they were accused of stealing the riff of Down Under from a children's campfire song, Kookaburra Sits in the Old Gum Tree. According to The Guardian, they were ultimately ordered to pay 5% of the song's royalties, but the news absolutely devastated Ham. He was never the same after the court ruling. Ham was found dead on April 19, 2012. It was later revealed the cause was a heart attack. 4. Laura Branigan. Laura Branigan saw immediate success with her 1982 debut album Branigan, which featured one of the most enduring pop songs of the decade, Gloria. The single skyrocketed to the number 2 spot on Billboard's Hot 100 and sat pretty on the chart for an impressive 36 weeks. The singer perhaps would have endured longer success if it wasn't for her husband's cancer diagnosis in the 90s, causing her to ultimately retire her microphone in 1994. "That's what I lived for," she told CNN in 2002, of quitting her career to look after her beau. It was not even a choice. Sadly, Branigan's husband died a mere 2 years later, leaving her overcome with grief and unable to return to music. In the early 2000s, Branigan finally went back into the recording studio, yet tragically she never got a chance to revive her once flourishing career. In August 2004, the singer complained of a headache for 2 weeks, resulting in her death from a brain aneurysm on August 26th. 3. Falco. Moving into the vibrant 1980s music scene, Austrian rap icon Falco made waves internationally with his iconic 1986 hit, Rock Me Amadeus. This groundbreaking track not only catapulted Falco to the top of the Billboard's pop chart, but also made him the first Austrian artist to achieve such a feat. Surprisingly, Falco also became the first rap artist to have a #1 pop song on the American chart, solidifying his place in music history. While some may perceive Falco as a one-hit wonder due to the immense popularity of Rock Me Amadeus, he continued to create music that resonated with audiences, maintaining a strong presence near the top of the German and Austrian charts throughout the 1990s. Despite his ongoing success in Europe, Falco's star in America never quite reached the same heights as his groundbreaking hit. In the late 1990s, Falco embarked on a new chapter in the Dominican Republic, where he began constructing his own recording studio. Tragically, he never saw the completion of his studio. In February 1998, Falco's life was cut short in Puerto Plata when his car was struck by a bus. 2. Bobby Farrell. Moving to the vibrant disco era of the 1970s, Boney M stands out as a definitive group of the time, fronted by Bobby Farrell. Known for their infectious hits like Rivers of Babylon, Daddy Cool, and Rasputin, Boney M's music continues to evoke nostalgia and joy, as evidenced by the recent resurgence of Rasputin due to a viral TikTok dance trend in 2021. Interestingly, Bobby Farrell didn't actually sing on stage. He lip-synced in place of Frank Farian, who masterminded the group. Despite this, Farrell became synonymous with Boney M's energetic performances and iconic songs until his departure from the group in 1981 when he was unexpectedly fired by Farian himself. After leaving Boney M, Farrell attempted a solo career but faced challenges and financial difficulties. He struggled in his home in the Netherlands, relying on welfare and even experiencing a brief stint in prison. However, by the turn of the millennium, Farrell found his footing again and returned to performing, re-recording the beloved hits that had made him famous. Tragically, Bobby Farrell's life came to an untimely end in 2010. Following a performance in St. Petersburg, Russia, the former Boney M frontman was discovered deceased in his hotel room at the age of 61. 1. Robert Palmer. Let's finish with Robert Palmer, the blue-eyed soul singer who skyrocketed to fame with his 1985 album, Riptide. This LP featured two massive hits that dominated the charts and airwaves. Addicted to Love, with its iconic music video featuring the sultry Robert Palmer girls, spent 2 weeks at the top spot, cementing Palmer's status as a pop culture icon. Following closely behind was I Didn't Mean to Turn You On, which peaked at number 2, further solidifying Palmer's presence in the music industry. As these chart-topping tunes were making waves, Palmer made a significant move by joining the supergroup Power Station. Named after the legendary recording studio, Power Station featured powerhouse talents like Tony Thompson of Chic on drums and John and Andy Taylor, no relation, of Duran Duran on bass and lead guitar respectively. Together, they achieved success with hits like Some Like It Hot and a memorable cover of T-Rex's Get It On, Bang a Gong. Not one to slow down, Palmer kept the hit train rolling into the late 80s with Simply Irresistible, another chart topper that peaked at number 2 in 1988. Despite his commercial fortunes experiencing a downturn after the 80s, Palmer remained dedicated to his craft, continuing to record music up until his untimely passing. Tragically, in 2003, Robert Palmer's life was cut short when he suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 54. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more musical journeys. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.